Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of Shop My Stash Switch. So the last episode came out in May, so I extended this rotation from half through May and June. So here we are for a July rotation. There is a chance that I may do this rotation for 2 months, for July and August, because in Florida right now there is so much humidity and the temperatures are so high that the complexion products that I'm using, it's pretty much a good handful of items. This is what I'm going to be picking in this video. Also, you will get to see them. They're going to be curated in my previous Shop My Stash videos earlier, like in the spring and in the beginning of the year. You would see me trying to have different formulas to put in the rotation. When it comes to July and August in Florida, if you've ever traveled down here or you live in this area, you know that there is no way I would be able to use anything but mattifying products, especially on my combo oily skin. You will see later on in this video the products that I'm going to be selecting. Timestamps are always underneath this video for you to navigate through. So if you're new here, there are 3 parts to this video. First things first, I'm going to go through this entire basket of all the products that I've had in my past rotation. I'm going to talk a little bit about all those products. Then I'm going to be ranking all these 8 eyeshadow palettes. And then in the last part of this video, I'm going to go ahead and shop my stash, pick new items to play with for the next rotation. But before we get started, I would love to welcome new visitors and viewers to my channel. Hi, my name is Eve. I love all things beauty. Here on my channel, I share about makeup, skincare, hair care, and at times lifestyle things like travel, fashion, and lifestyle vlogs. I upload new videos every week, and if that sounds like a thing, I hope you stick around, subscribe to my channel. And now without further ado, let's dive in. So the makeup that you're seeing on my face, I've filmed for CHATTY Get Ready With Me, featuring some of this Shop My Stash items. That video should be already live on my channel before you're watching this video. So for my primers, I had 3 primers selected this time. 2 of them were from Smashbox. This one is a little bit glower version, and this is a oil and shine controlling version. This is the primer that I'm wearing on my face today. I really enjoy both of these. They just have different purposes. I've used this primer a few times. It's nice and like hydrating, comfortable, lotion-like feel to it. And this one is an oil controlling and shine controlling product. This is a really good product for my T-zone. It does the job. I've used this primer a good amount in this past rotation and I intend to keep it. And this one I'm going to be putting back. And then another primer that I had was this Optical Illusion from Urban Decay. I really like this primer. It's a smoothing pore filling formula. And this reminds me of the e.l.f. Putty Primer, but even a little bit better. It smoothes my pores really nicely and doesn't clump up under makeup. There's a high chance I will be just naturally reaching for this, but I will be putting this back. So for my foundations, I had 5 selected last time. This Clinique Stay Matte Foundation is the one that I am wearing right now on my face, and I absolutely love this. This does have a matte formula. It's very comfortable, soft matte formula. I do apply it on a hydrated face. Whenever I use my SPF lotion, that is enough hydration for me. I like it. I'm also going to keep it in this next rotation as well because it is a matte formula but beautiful soft matte finish, and it is very long lasting and it has a thin consistency with a really nice medium coverage, which I really like. It doesn't settle into my line, so all the good things. This is a really excellent matte formula that doesn't age you, doesn't look crusty dusty, and long wearing, beautiful. Then I also had the Catrice HD liquid coverage. I had mine in the shade Porcelain Beige. This foundation is very famous. Has a very nice medium buildable consistency and a very nice matte finish, but also comfortable matte finish. I've used this a good amount of time, but I'm going to keep this again in this rotation because it is a matte formula, and this is basically what I'm going to be using for the next 2 months. I've had this foundation for some time, but I do have a small amount of this still left. I want to use it. I know they reformulated this foundation, added niacinamide into it, so I do want to finish this off and buy a new one. The next foundation that I had was this Blurring Tint foundation from NYX. Excellent formula. I personally really like it. My shade was light neutral. This also has a really nice medium coverage. I know that opinion differed on this foundation, but I personally like it a lot. It works for me. I am going to keep this foundation here in the rotation again because, like I said, I need my matte formulas to stay. So the next foundation that I had is this Bye Bye foundation from NOMAD Cosmetics. This is a matte formula. Mine was in the shade Light. So this shade is a little bit deeper than my palest self. This is a shade that matches my tan complexion. It's definitely perfect for me for summer when I'm tanning. A nice matte formula. So I'm gonna keep this also. So I feel like you guys are getting the gist here. When it comes to complexion, I'm primarily keeping all my matte formulas. So the last foundation that I had here was Infallible from L'Oreal. This is in the shade 405. This is a really good match for me when I'm at my palest. This is becoming a little bit too light for me, so I'm gonna put this back. However, this is a really nice formula that would still work for me in summertime, but I'm gonna give this a break. As far as the concealers, I had 3 selected this past time. So this one from Anastasia Beverly Hills, I had mine in the shade 6, and this is a little bit deeper shade for me. I'm gonna start swatching things here. This is a shade. It's definitely much deeper than my pale complexion, as you can see, but this has a really nice coverage. I'm gonna put this back because it is a really nice hydrating formula. I would never use this under my eyes because of the shade, but I would use this as a foundation, and this is beautiful. A little goes a long way. It gives you a really high coverage. I like it, but it is a little bit more of the hydrating formula, so I'm gonna put this back. The next concealer that I had was IRL Filter Finish from Makeup Revolution. Mine was in the shade C3. I really like this doe foot applicator. Kind of looks like a foot, but this is the shade that I have. It is a little bit more brightening, but not too much. I still can use it with this complexion when I'm a little bit more tan, but you can see the shade is really nice and fits my complexion generally. This is a medium coverage of the concealer. It is a little bit buildable. This is actually what I'm wearing today. Whenever I have blueness to cover, this is not the concealer that I would use. I've used this concealer a good amount and I naturally reach for this, so I'm gonna give this concealer a break and pick something else this time. The last concealer that I had here in my rotation was the Even Better All Over Concealer and Eraser from Clinique. This was in a shade CN20 Fair. What I love the most about this concealer is the formula. It is a really nice high coverage, almost gives you a medium, really nice high medium coverage right off the bat, but also has a little bit of a hydrating property once you apply it. It helps you to blend the product easily under your eye. If you wanted to build it up, you could, but I feel a lot of times that I don't even have to. One layer is enough. Main thing that I love about this product is that it is self-setting. I do have some fine lines under my eyes. It settles there a tiny bit because any concealer would, but then I tap it out with a sponge or my finger or like a brush and then let it sit again, and then that's it. That's all it takes. It just wears throughout the day very beautifully. I really love this concealer. I'm gonna keep this around because I want to continue using this for this season. The less layers that I have in this hot and humid weather, the better for me. So the self-setting products, this is where it's at. So now let's talk a little bit about the bronzing products, and I've had this many. I had 5, and this is basically a face palette. I will talk about it last. First, I had my Marc Jacobs bronzer in the shade 102 Tantric. I'm still using it. The pan is nowhere near. This is gonna stay here because I really like it. It has a really nice pigment. I reach for it quite a good amount. And did you guys hear the news that Marc Jacobs seemed to be coming back? I am quite excited about that. Let me know what your favorite Marc Jacobs product was and if you're excited about the brand coming back. Then I had the cream bronzer from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This was in the shade Amber. The formula is really, really lovely, and I've used it a good amount of times in the past rotation. It is a very nice long wearing formula. It doesn't fade throughout the day on me. It is very easily blendable, so I have really no issues with the formulation. I feel like this shade is a little bit too warm orangey for me. I can definitely make it work when I'm very tanned. Whenever I do a light self tan, I feel like this shade clashes with my skin. I'm gonna keep this cream bronzer for another rotation because this is a season when I'm tanning. This is a good chance for me to use it because after the summer, there's a high chance I just will not be even touching it. Then I had the Sun Club Matte Bronzing Powder. This is in the shade 0 Natural. This is meant for lighter skin tones. This is a bronzer that has a broken packaging as always. And honestly, I love so much stuff from Essence, but this is the things that keeps happening every single time. You would open this packaging like 3-4 times and it breaks every single time and never fails. And I just feel like at this point there are so many different affordable brands that are doing a better job with their packaging. I feel like I'm tired of it. I feel like I'm tired of buying stuff that breaks after a few uses, even though the product is nice. I feel like they changed the formula. I've said that before and I still stick to this opinion. I think that they've changed the formula. There's something different about it. It's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. And also it started getting this weird pan situation in the middle. It just doesn't look right to me. Long story short, I just recently did a bronzer declutter. That video is already live on my channel. You may have even watched it already, but this bronzer was decluttered out of my collection. The only reason you were seeing it here is because I needed to talk about it one more time in this video. So the next bronzer is by Physicians Formula. This is a bronze booster. This was in the shade light to medium. This is the bronzer that I'm partially wearing today. I just use it to set my cream bronzer and I really like this. It gives me a little bit of glowiness and it's a really nice formula that lasts. I generally feel like these packaging from a Physicians Formula is just so bulky and it takes so much space in a storage, and I am somewhat running out of my storage. I also do have face palettes from Physicians Formula, which I prefer. It makes more sense to me to have a palette with multiple products. I'm gonna keep this in this rotation because it has a really nice pigment. It works perfectly for a warmer weather. I really like the formula and I need to get a use out of it. Now let's talk about this face palette from Kaja. It had 3 products. This is a Play Bento in the shade Butter Up 01. I've talked about this product many times on my channel. This is a mini face palette that would travel with me a lot of times. So there's a blush, a matte blush, a very beautiful highlighter, and then the cream bronzer. As you can see, I've been really loving onto this cream bronzer. This is the one that I'm also wearing today on my complexion. I really like this formula. You really can't mess this up. It's just so easy to use. This highlighter is beautiful. I feel like I am kind of getting down to somewhat what looks like a pan, but not quite yet. I've been using this highlighter quite a bit. This shade is just very pretty. It's like champagne and a little bit of rosiness in it. I feel like it has that type of color that is somewhat universal. This is the blush. It's a beautiful matte formula. It's not too bright. So I'm wearing this entire trio today on my face. And like I mentioned earlier, you can see the entire application in the video. I've used this a good amount of times this past rotation. I'm going to be putting this back. And I also had this blush. This is a newly launched liquid blush from Juvia's Place. I have mine in the shade Marigold. This is a beautiful bright shade, but this is such a pigmented formula for me that I would not even put it directly on my face. I would dispense it on a little plate and then mix it, diffuse it, and then very gently apply it on both of my cheeks. This blush would last me for 100 lifetimes. I'm not even exaggerating. I'm having a little bit of a difficulty using this product. Maybe it is a shade. Also, maybe I should try a little bit of a lighter muted shade because this one scares me. It's not that it's not beautiful. It is beautiful, but I feel like I cannot give it full potential because I have to share it out to the point that you barely see anything. I generally like the formula. I think it's really nice and comfortable. It blends beautifully and it doesn't fade. It's a really high pigment in it, but I may look into a little bit more subtle color. This is another blush that I had from Juvia's Place. This is their powder duo, and this is the volume 6 beautiful orange. This line of blushes is just so good. I really like that there are 2 intensities basically perfectly, and they layer really well together. There's also a mirror in the palette. I've been using this quite a bit. I love this blush. I'm gonna keep this around because this is generally the type of like coral orangey shades that I tend to reach in summer, so I'm gonna keep this. I also had the highlighter from Juvia's Place. This is the Tribe Highlighter Volume 3. I really enjoy this. This is a very bright highlighter. I've used this a good handful of times, but I feel like generally I've been reaching to a little bit less brighter formulas, a little bit something more subtle, and I'm gonna put this back even though I really like this highlighter. Then I had the Super Shock Flexitarian from Colourpop. This is a beautiful highlighter. I'm actually going to keep it because it is a cream formula and I simply just need to get use out of it. And then I also had the Bare Minerals Mineral Veil highlighter. I am actually also going to keep it because this is a loose formula that I generally do not reach for. I again need to use it, but that does have a very nice soft glow to it, which almost looks like your skin is glowing from within. So I have a few more products left. I have 2 powders and a setting spray. As far as the setting spray, I had this 3-in-1 Smashbox setting spray. Very nice formula, very nice mister, and this is 3-in-1. You can use it as a primer, as a setting spray, and as a refreshing spray. I've used this a good amount, but I'm gonna put this back. So as far as these 2 powders, they're both excellent. This one I used today, and this is a really nice setting powder that sets everything to a very nice matte consistency. It's really long wearing. It's perfect for setting, retouching. Mine is in the shade Translucent, but I think it comes in shades. This is an excellent formula that works for summer season especially. I love this powder, but I'm going to put this back this time. I've used this a good amount. And this Uoma Beauty powder, this is their newer launch. It's called Trippin' Smooth powder, and this is another powder that nobody talks about. This has very interesting packaging. The powder sits in the circle inside, and you need to rotate the circle, and the powder comes out from the bottom. This formula is so finely milled and it is mattifying. It's so beautiful. I'm actually going to keep this powder. Now let's get into the eyeshadow palette ranking. I had 8 eyeshadow palettes selected for this round. On spot number 8, I've placed the Naked Reloaded. I really enjoy this packaging. It's beautiful, padded, and covered with this silky fabric. Also love this color story, even though it's boring and neutral, and I still like it. This is kind of what I would reach for on a daily basis. So this past rotation, I've reached for this palette a few times, and I really noticed that some of the matte shades were somehow a little bit drier, and I didn't remember this formula being like that prior when I used it. So I'm generally not against Urban Decay eyeshadow palette formula. I have a few Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes in my collection, but there's something possibly different in the formulation with this palette, so I need to really revisit this, and this is why the palette made it to the last spot. So on the spot number 7, I have a Modern Renaissance from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is another neutral color story. I do consider burgundies a neutral. This palette is primarily matte, and there are a few satins. I generally enjoy this palette. I love ABH formula. However, I feel like I didn't reach for this palette too much. I've reached for it a few times just to these warmer shades because this leans towards cooler undertone, and I feel like it just didn't fit into the hot and humid summer season that's happening right now. So that's why that ended up on number 7. So on the spot number 6, I ended up with a Colourpop Truly Madly Deeply. I generally really like this palette. The reason why I'm ranking this a little bit lower is because I've only reached to some of these shades right here throughout this entire time. It's not because I don't like the palette, it's because the month of June has been not the best month for me. I had moments of like hardship with my mental health, and Father's Day was around the corner, and then I had my insomnia. So there were quite a few days in June that I was under the weather and I didn't have the best time of my life, and I did not really wear a lot of makeup, or I would wear like very minimal makeup. So that being said, I really didn't give that palette a lot of chance, but it is a great palette and I really like it. So on the spot number 5, I do have a bronze palette from Natasha Denona. I recently did an entire ranking of all my mid-size Natasha Denona palettes. That video is already live on my channel. This is a palette that is very bronzy. I really enjoy this palette, but this palette runs a little bit more of a mid-tone generally. naturally. I do like that there's depth in the palette, so you do have a chance to create smokier, summery, bronzy goddess vibes with this palette, but there are really no lighter shades here. So for your inner corner, for your brighter inner corner, you have to reach to a different palette, or for your highlighter. Warm tone neutrals, this is something that I gravitate towards naturally. I do enjoy the palette, and this is Natasha Denona quality we're talking about here. Generally great palette, but made it on a number 5 because you kind of get very similar looks out of this. So on the spot number 4, I have Urban Decay Wild Greens palette. I'm not a huge fan of this packaging. I would rather have them made it like a book and put a mirror in here, but okay, I appreciate the creativity. So this is a color story that I just generally enjoy. I love this beautiful greens and the warm corals. I don't care that this palette does not have a lot of depth. I've reached for this palette quite a bit in the past rotation. I love the shimmers here. I love the mattes. I like that there are some cooler tones here in this palette and some warmer tones. All of these shades are so flattering on my skin. I actually wore a look with this palette in one of my recent videos. Last week, I think it went live, but I love this palette. I know this palette didn't get a lot of love here on the platform, but I personally really enjoy it. On the spot number 3, I have the Cutie Coral palette from Nabla, and I just like this color story. This palette is discontinued. The shimmer shades are outstanding here. If you wanted to see my Nabla eyeshadow palette ranking, that video is already also live on my channel. I enjoy this color story. I think it's perfect for warmer seasons like spring, summer. Very nice and curated, but you get a lot of things to work with here. And I really like Nabla eyeshadow formula generally. So on the spot number 2, this is a palette partially that I'm wearing on my eyes today. And this is a palette that I've spoken about so many times on my channel. And some of you are like, Eve, when are you going to use it on your eyes? You just keep talking about it and like don't show us what you mean. So this is Gardens by Juvia's. So I used a bunch of these shades today, like these yellows and some of the purples on my eyes today. I love this palette primarily for the shimmers. I've been talking about it on and on and on in the last several videos of mine, and I just can't stop talking about it. Most of the mattes I think are pigments here. Let's say the mattes are not my favorite to work with, but they are still workable, but the shimmers here are so good. I love this palette. And on the spot number 1, I have Mercury Retrograde. This palette is just so much fun. I don't even know if this palette is available anymore. I think it was on sale for a while and then it was brought back and it was on sale again. And this palette is very inspirational. It is a beautiful Huda Beauty formula that I find very easy to work with. Shimmers are beautiful. The ones that are beautiful, reflective. You have a really nice pigment. Mattes are easy to work with. You get some color, some neutral shades. So I think this is a really fun palette. I've used this palette the most out of all the palettes that are here in front of me today. That's why this palette made it to number 1 ranking. So this was the ranking. Let me know what you guys think. Did you see any of your favorites? Do you have any of these palettes? Let me know what you're loving, which eyeshadow palettes you're loving this summer season. If you wanted to see some more summery palette related videos, my summer eyeshadow palette stash video is already live on my channel. Usually in my shop my stash videos where I choose a new selection of products for the next month rotation, I would choose 8 palettes or 8 eyeshadow palettes to play with. So this time around, I think I'm going to switch things up a little bit. I am not going to be choosing specific eyeshadow palettes. However, I want to see what I naturally gravitate towards and which palettes I am reaching for, and I will limit myself to 8 as per usual, and then of course I will do the ranking in my next video. I am very excited for this. Let me know what you think, if you like this idea or you like the previous idea better. For my primers, I need to finish this up. This is a perfect primer for me for summer because it is an SPF and it is also a matte tinted formula. So I'm gonna get this one. So I think I'm gonna go with this primer because this is considerably new to me and it is a mattifying formula. So I'm gonna get that. So I am not gonna be choosing any more foundations because I already have 4 there. I'm just going to select concealers. I think I'm gonna pick something from this drawer. I think I'm gonna go with the Natasha Denona concealer. This is excellent. For my powder, I am getting to this powder. I've already featured this on my channel. This is excellent mattifying powder. I would need this for summer. So here are my bronzers, blushes, and highlighters, and I only want one blush from here, and I think I'm gonna go with this beautiful Serafina blush from Juvia's Place. This is a beautiful like bright coral. It has a little bit of glowiness to it. I love this blush in summer, so I'm gonna keep it. Out of my face palettes, I think I like to reach for this Too Faced Natural Face Palette. This is a beautiful palette that has more blush, and I really like this bright pink blush. It's so beautiful. It has glowy bronzers here and 2 different highlighters. Everything fits nicely into this basket. I feel like I selected just fewer products. Most of my foundations are matte, and some of them mattifying complexion products, some really good trusted powders. So, and as far as the palettes, I'm excited to try a new version of palette rotation. I will be doing a sit down chit-chatty get ready with me video as per usual using some of these products. I will pick a fun palette to play with for that video, and I do have some new colorful eyeshadow palettes that I'm excited to use also. I would love to know if you have any questions or topics that you would like me to talk about in that video. Leave those in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give this a thumb up, and if you're not yet a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe to my channel before you leave today. And thanks so much for watching, hanging out with me today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.